and welcome to the Just Economy Podcast. The Just Economy Podcast is sponsored by the Community Reinvestment Alliance of Florida. We are a statewide organization, membership organization, helping to educate not only government, nonprofit institutions, as well as the community at large on the Community Reinvestment Act. The Community Reinvestment Act is a law that was enacted in 1977 that requires all the financial institutions registered in this country to reinvest into the community. So we encourage those collaborations and partnerships in the community and hopefully increased reinvestment. I am your host. My name is Cornell Cruz Jr. I am the Executive Director of the Community Reinvestment Alliance of Florida. We have a couple of announcements, a couple of things we have going on this month. So first, the nonprofit capacity building project, which is powered by Truist Bank, is back in effect. We have grant applications open right now till midnight, to July 31st, 2025. You can apply for grants up to $20,000, and this is for organizations with budgets of $500,000 or less for capacity building, meaning anything from auditing or engaging in an auditor all the way to staffing. So you can apply for those grants online, approximately a 3-4 page application, plus maybe 3 or 4 documents. It's very, very simple. We have a review committee that will do the scoring. Once they do the scoring, we'll announce the awards and write the checks. Our first iteration, which we completed in January, we had 59 applications. We funded 22 organizations totaling over $220,000. So we're hoping to keep this going. This time, we also got another group of funding from Comerica Bank. So Comerica Bank and Truist Bank is powering this particular project. So as we look at this, we're hoping that more financial institutions will engage with us. And then the next announcement is we're going to hold a bankers roundtable September 29th. Place to be determined. I want to put the nonprofit CEOs and executive directors in the same room with the bankers. And I think we're going to expand it and ask community foundations to come in as well to talk about funding, talk about what are we going to do in this funding crisis, how we can increase bank community involvement, and how the community foundations or the foundations are going to be able to help us fill those gaps. I know all of you are hurting out there as far as the nonprofits are concerned, wondering where that next dollar is going to come from, especially if you were getting federal, state grants. How are you going to meet that shortfall? So we're going to invite the bankers to come in and talk about how they can help do that and how they can help solve that issue. So look forward to that. You'll be seeing announcements starting in August, and we'll be holding that again September 29th. Place to be determined. So we look forward to seeing you in that. And don't forget the grants. Please, by no means necessary. All the funding gaps that are coming right now. If you looked at in particular, if you looked at the governor's budget, he slashed quite a bit of funding. So it nixed quite a few projects. So we look forward to trying to help fill some of those gaps. So today, our guest is Scarlett Lanzas. She's the founder and CEO of Accountable Impact. Ms. Lanzas founded Accountable Impact, a Miami-based nonprofit organization with the mission to localize United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. We're going to talk a lot about SDGs. Trust me, I had no clue what they were until I heard her speak at Philanthropy Miami event we met there. And by activating global and national networks and local stakeholders to co-design programs that must balance social, environmental, and economic sustainability. The organization aligns with the UN 2030 agenda and applies SDGs framework as an advocacy tool for local policy planning and developing sustainable solutions. Her and I have a lot to talk about. Welcome, Scarlett. Thank you, and welcome to the Just Economy Podcast.
Thank you, Cornell. This is fantastic. I'm very grateful that you invited me.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about SDG. She's going to do a lot of educating on us right now over the next half hour or so. So let's talk about how you got here. Born and raised, And how did you end up doing this work?
Born in Nicaragua. I grew up in Miami. We moved to different places, different countries because of the war in Nicaragua in the 80s. But I moved when I was like 7. My family moved to Miami since I was 7. So Miami has been my home for most of my life. How I got here to do what I do is because I started my career at the United Nations World Food Program.
Oh, okay.
So I got to see what goals like the SDGs did in developing countries, which nowadays we should call them low-income countries, right? So that's how I got to Miami and to the work that I do today.
So was there one specific instance that inspired you to do this work and start this organization?
Oh my God, we're gonna get too personal, I guess, but that's okay. So remember 2020, right? The pandemic. Just before the pandemic hit in 2019, December 2019, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Okay, thank God it was caught early, but I went through this in the middle of the pandemic. So I had surgery. They removed the tumor, a lumpectomy in February. March, I was supposed to start my radiation therapy. And that's the day that Miami shut down. We were sent home.
Wow.
So I was like, what? But then there were other cases that were more urgent than mine. So the doctor said, just go home. We'll call you in a couple of weeks so we can start the radiation. And so 3 months passed by. And I was just waiting at home. We were all stuck at home, right?
Yes.
We couldn't do much. But then, and I don't know if you remember, but in those 2 weeks that the world was on lockdown, completely on lockdown, no one was working, no one was flying, no one was driving, factories were shut down. Since I told you I was at home with not a lot to do, I was checking my phone. A quick story. I love to travel. In 2018, I went to India.
I know that had to be a great trip. That's on my bucket list.
Yes. So I had always dreamt of going to India, and I loved everything about India. The food, the culture, the architecture, the people, the music, everything except one thing. Guess what?
What was that?
Air quality.
Wow, yeah. They do have an air quality problem.
Everywhere we went, Mumbai, New Delhi, Agra, we went to the Taj Mahal. That's the only place that was like fairly with good air quality. But my lungs hurt, Cornell. We were only there for 2 weeks, and I felt so bad, so sick. So when we got back to Miami, I remember coming out of the airport, and I was like, clean air. Like my lungs were just breathing clean air. So fast forward to 2020, the world was on lockdown. I was at home checking my phone, like the weather app, right? Everywhere I go, I check the weather. And I saw that India was showing good air quality. And I was like, wait, what? So I started
How was that
Googling.
possible and you had just been there?
Well, it had only been 10 days. 10 days of the world in lockdown, right? Remember, nothing was being produced. No one was flying.
You know what? I remember seeing those videos. They were showing the difference between the air quality before the lockdown and during the lockdown.
Yeah. So I still have that news article where they said that India hadn't seen good air quality in decades. And just in 10 days that the world just shut down, air quality improved significantly. So I'm like, what are we doing to this planet? We got to do something. And that's when I decided, okay, what's the one thing that we can do by holding entities or individuals accountable? We can actually make an impact. That's when I started thinking about accountable impact. And I started doing a lot of consultations with professors, with county officials, with academics from all over the world, because thank God I have a good internet network. And I was just wondering what can we do? So I came across, I was already working with the Sustainable Development Goals with a partner of ours, Social Impact Movement, Claudia Eichel. But I was like, there's got to be more that we can do. So I came across this wonderful tool called the Voluntary National Review. So ask me, what is that?
What is that?
So that's a self-assessment of countries that are, that committed to accelerating the SDGs. So a little bit of history. You want me to tell you what the SDGs are, how they came to be?
Yeah, that was going to be my very next question. I'm glad, as most founders are, they're inspired by something that usually happened to them, and they inspired them to start an organization that can help the world. So I'm really glad to hear you say that, and hopefully that inspires all you aspiring nonprofit entrepreneurs. Something has to get you started and to put you there, and you can see a way in order to help. So Scarlett has shown that all it took was a traveling to India and experiencing that bad air to put you in this place, right?
Yeah, exactly. Um, yes, I was really really shocked how the air quality was affecting children. You think that air quality it's just something that a bad smell. No, it's
Mm.
affecting your lungs. It's children develop asthma, allergies, adults as well, right? The life expectancy of people in areas where there's a lot of contamination, whether it's water or air, significantly decreases, right? And they don't have quality of life. They develop cancer. They develop all sorts of conditions, medical conditions that they're not able to live healthy and longer, right? So that's why I was inspired. And anyone can do it, right? And I want to emphasize, it's not just the air quality. Remember, guys, when we were seeing the dolphins and all the animals coming back to areas where they were completely displaced, that's what I'm talking about. That was the ignition that made me say, we got to do something in Miami.
So and we had a lot of that, especially we have so much construction that goes on. Not to mention what we're doing to the bay, and what we're doing on the other side of the bay, other side of the beaches, out to the ocean as well. I feel you. So let's talk about sustainable development goals. I saw that there were 17 of them.
Mm-hmm.
When I looked at the chart, I was like, wow. By the way, you got to go to their website, accountableimpact.org. You got to go to their website. But when I looked at the 17, I was like, okay, can we do all these sustainable goals? Is that even possible? And did the SDGs come from, a better question, did the SDGs come from the UN initiative, or this was your input?
I love that question because the UN SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, didn't come out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2000, the world came together and they were talking about how do we get the world together to solve urgent problems like poverty, hunger. So they approved the Millennium Development Goals. So those ran from 2000 to 2015. Okay, those were only 8 goals, and they were applicable more for low-income countries, which back then we called the developing country, the global south, for example. So in 2012, they started thinking, okay, what are we going to do? We have achieved some of them, but what's the deadline is 2015. We need to start talking about what we're going to do with this set of goals. So the world, again, came together and realized that those MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals, were good, but did not approach issues in countries such as ours in the United States, right? So they started talking about sustainable development, which is, in simple terms, it was a term that the UN created in 1987 at the Brundtland Convention. And it's simple terms. How do we make sure that we keep the resources that we have today for generations to come? Meaning good air quality, water, a livable planet, not just for us, but for future generations. That's our responsibility. So in 2015, after 3 years of negotiations and consultations from the world's brightest minds, academics, consultations with civil society, they agreed in 2015 the 17 global goals, and all 193 nations, members of the United Nations, approved them unanimously. And they said this is the blueprint for the future, the 17 global goals that go, like you said, from no poverty to life below water, which is oceans, peace, justice, and strong institutions, gender equality. This is the roadmap so that we make sure that by 2030 we have a livable planet and beyond, right? So they're applicable for rich countries, middle-income countries, villages, schools, cities, municipalities, states. Everyone plays a part. And it's not only the responsibility of the UN, even though the UN is like this convening organization, it's the responsibility of government, private sector, academia, nonprofits, individuals, young, not so young, everyone coming together for the SDGs.
So has it been challenging to get, because you're here locally, you're trying to apply those 17 goals here locally, I take it, right?
Yes.
Is that statewide or just here in South Florida?
In South Florida.
Okay.
Yes.
So being as I know how challenging working with government can be, how was that challenge? How have you been able to attack that challenge with local governments?
So when we started in 2020, remember how I said we had consultations with different sectors and different stakeholders. If I tell you that 90% of the people that we talked to did not know what the SDGs were.
Well, like me, I
Yeah.
I can claim my dumbness on that.
No, it's just that that's what we're here for, to inform, to activate communities. So another phenomenon that we experience is that not only did they not know, they would say, oh, UN SDGs, oh, if you talk to the private sector, no, 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 that's the responsibility of the government. Then the government would say, no, 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 that's the responsibility of the United Nations. So depending on who you talk to, they would I like to call this like they throw the ball, the responsibility. And that's where we came in. No, no, no. It's everyone, right? Because we want to make sure that Miami, for example, it's a livable city, that we have quality education, that we can tackle issues like affordability and home affordability. We have equal pay, all those things that are needed so that we can progress as a community, as a society. So little by little, we started doing work with specifically with academia, with universities. That was for us a game changer. When they opened the doors to even academia, I gotta say, we're not well
So you
aware.
even had pushback from academia?
No, they were not informed or aware of the SDGs. Some did, some professors, some faculty, but not all of them, right? But so we were very lucky that, like I said, we have different networks. We were very, very lucky that the Consulate of the Netherlands, I keep saying that they're our biggest partners and supporter, back in 2022, they opened the doors to us and they said, well, you know what? You're the first organization that come to us that is accelerating the SDGs in Miami. In the Netherlands, they have an SDG charter. It's embedded in the national and
I'm not surprised though.
policies, right?
I'm not surprised by that.
Okay, so they were like, okay, we're going to support you. And we created the SDG Challenge, which started in the Netherlands, by the way. It's a student competition. So it started in the Netherlands, is now global. It's gone to Johannesburg, Cape Town in South Africa, a small city in Portugal, a very small one in Mexico, and in the U.S. we're the ones who implement the SDG Challenge, which is it's a program that involves everyone, right? So we have the students, but we work with the universities, we work with the private sector, we work with community organizations, even the public-private partnerships that we have present in Miami, county governments, municipalities, media as well. So it's a very cool program that involves the entire community. So we make it as inclusive and as open as possible because our mission is to educate, inform, and activate our communities through this SDGs framework, which many of us are working on. If you're working on gender equality, that's SDG 5. You're working on renewable energy, that's SDG 7. It's a framework where we can all come together, and instead of working in silos, we can collaborate, but also be accountable to each other because this framework has not just the goals, it has targets and indicators.
So how are you getting the nonprofit organizations? Let's start there. How are you getting the nonprofit organizations involved in understanding SDGs? Because now that I understand it, my organization, even though we deal with the financial institutions, because when I talk to the financial institutions, I talk to them not only about the normal things, affordable housing and small business loans and mortgages and things of that nature, but I also always bring up climate gentrification and climate change. I always bring up transportation, and particularly here in, well, our whole state, transportation is an issue. I always bring up income inequality, racial inequality. I always bring up all those things, not knowing until I read your about your organization, not knowing the importance that these are SDGs as well. So how are you teaming up with the nonprofits in order to get them to understand that one, you're part of the 17 SDGs, and two, how we can work together and get out of the silos. Because it's my firm belief that some people, I shouldn't say some people, let me put this another way, folks that are some of the powers that be prefer that we stay in silos because it's easy to attack us that way. So how are you working with nonprofits and educating nonprofits as far as the SDGs are concerned?
Okay, so the first thing I'm going to say to that is systems change. That's what
Systems
systems change, right? That we're all interconnected, right? We want to tackle the issues that there is food insecurity, but yes, some people need food assistance. But how can we make programs or initiatives or interventions so that people are self-sustainable? Especially nowadays, that a lot of the funding for those social safety nets are being cut. That's the one approach that we are taking, right? And that's why the organizations that we're working, which the nonprofits, it's easy to get to, right? Because they're already doing the work.
Sure.
That's easy. Like, how do we collaborate? Because we rely on each other to expand our mission, to do more outreach. So that's an easy one. But what we're trying to work with is the other stakeholders, the financial institutions, the philanthropists, but also having them understand that we need a different approach. We cannot continue doing this work as charity. This is not charity, okay? This has to be an investment in our community, thinking about systems change, right? Instead of just continue to giving the regular, charity circle where listen, I come from the food assistance world, okay? So I'm not criticizing the food assistance and the food banks are needed. But how do we make sure that we use that food assistance or those food banks as an incentive to get people, educated, provided additional resources? To give you an example, in the developing world, food assistance is just aid. It's an incentive for parents to send children, girls, to school in the Middle East. It's an incentive for parents to send kids in Latin America when there's a coffee pickup season. Instead of sending them to go pick up coffee, they can go to school.
No,
right?
That's one thing I notice about foreign countries. Those are always interconnected. They're feeding is one thing, but it's leading to something else.
Exactly. It's an investment. I keep saying it's an investment. It's not charity. It's not just donations. It has to be thought and approach in a different way. And that's how we're starting to do this work, right? There's a lot of partners, not just from Miami, but from different parts of the country and the world that wants to, help support us in bringing philanthropy to the SDGs. But with a systems thinking approach, not just the regular, I'm just going to give, this is a donation, and that's it. Because we also want to be accountable to those funders, right? We want to show what we're able to do and not just continue to give and give, but how do we break that cycle of poverty? How can we invest in communities so they can, have decent jobs so that they can afford homes? Those are the conversations that we're starting to have with a lot of stakeholders. And one of the things that I'm very proud is that we just launched a program called Planet Positive 2030, where we had over 70 entities. When I say entities, private sector, public sector, academia, nonprofits, students, media coming together because we want to see how Miami is going to look like in 2030. And then there's a modeling component that we're going to do backcasting, so working backwards, right? What do we need to do today so that in 2030 to get there? Exactly. So those are the kind of strategies that we do with our community.
Oh, thank you very much. We're going to take a break right quick.